All right, if no one else wants to talk about it, that's fine, but I'm going to. Square Enix is on some recently. All right, everybody, welcome back to the channel. This video is sponsored by this Chocobo here. No, I actually found this at the bins today, and I thought that was like a perfect coincidence because I was planning on making this video. This is from, this is just randomly aside here. This is from Chocobo Tales, I think the DS game. I never played it. This is an import. It's not worth anything, but look how cute this little Chocobo is reading this thing. Let's get him set up here for this video. So today I want to talk about Square Enix's recent output and how it's actually kind of insane. If I was thinking about this, literally, they have released so many games, and they are releasing so many games over this year and last year, that if they had their own console, they could probably support it, and it would do well. You know, obviously not factoring any logistics of actually releasing a console, but just in terms of like what would be their first-party output, the amount of games they have is insane. So I kind of just want to talk about this because, you know, for the past 5 years or so, Capcom has been like my runner-up in the corner. Obviously, Capcom is huge, and everybody loves Capcom. But for a while there, they were down and out. And then starting in 2017, they have just been on absolute fire. They have been by far my favorite Japanese publisher. That is starting to change. I feel like the sheer quantity and quality, Capcom definitely higher quality overall, but the sheer quantity of Square Enix's releases has been insane, especially on Switch. Of course, I am a Switch fan. I do have a PS5, and I play most of my games there, to be fair. But even just seeing their support on the Switch, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, more in depth in this video, is incredible. I have never seen a third-party publisher release this many games. They keep announcing games, and I'm just like, where is this coming from? For a while, I thought maybe, you know, like Live Alive or, you know, they just announced this Harvestella game, or even like Dio Field Chronicle. I thought maybe like, oh, they just put Tokyo RPG Factory on that because those games didn't do too well. Maybe they're just, you know, being a support studio, just pumping out as many games as possible. That is not the case. We'll get to them. They're making a 4th game. So I just want to kind of just talk about every game that Square Enix has released over the past, I don't know, 5 years or so, and just kind of just applaud them. Give them a round of applause. And of course, we will talk about their downsides where we can. Now, I mentioned the Capcom thing. Resident Evil 7 was obviously a turning point for that company in terms of releasing games and just them being high quality and them doing well. I was trying to figure out what that point was for Square Enix. I came to 2 conclusions. One of them is less praise than the other. You know, and, you know, looking through, they're certainly, they're very inconsistent overall. I was thinking maybe like, oh, well, 15, you know, after that, they kind of started getting things back on track. Obviously, most people, I shouldn't say most, a lot of people don't like 15. I love 15. A lot of people don't like 15. It definitely has its issues. So I was thinking maybe Kingdom Hearts 3, but once again, a lot of people don't like that game for some reason. I don't know why. I love Kingdom Hearts 3. And then more specifically, the point where they definitely like had that turning point was Final Fantasy 7 Remake. But also somewhere along the way, they just started going crazy on the Switch and re-releasing their old games. And I just want to talk about this, man, because I don't think people are really giving them the credit they deserve. They're just focused on Balan Wonderworld and Babylon's Fall, which is fair. You know, give them the BS where it's deserved. You know, they should be called out for those games. But in terms of the good stuff they release, it is insane. So I'm just on Wikipedia here. I'm just going back up in time. So even going back, so starting in 2017 with Nier Automata, and I went way too far back. I shouldn't be going that far back. Here, let's go up a little bit, actually. Here, let's go to 2018. So in 2018, this is where I feel like they really started focusing on a lot of their like smaller franchises again, like Mana and Saga. I mean, they've always supported these franchises, but really in the past 4 or 5 years, they have just been, for some reason, like really going in on those, which I don't get because I know they don't do that well. Trials or Mana more so than Saga, I assume. I'm guessing. But yeah, so like we had Secret of Mana Remake on PS4 and Vita. That was a Vita game in 2018. That was weird. Remember that remake? No one played that remake. I've heard it wasn't very good. But then later, of course, they did Trials of Mana in 2020 on Switch, and that did really well. And PS4, of course, just a full remake, really high quality remake. And like I said, a lot of this is Switch focused because their support of the Switch has been incredible recently. We had Octopath Traveler, of course, the first HD2D game that was announced with the Switch back in January of 2017. And then we've had a whole series of HD2D games that we'll talk about as we go through here that have just been amazing on the Switch. And we're getting more of them, just so many more of them. Then we had The World Ends With You Final Remix, and then, of course, Neo The World Ends With You, which who would have thought we would ever get a new World Ends With You, and of course that was on Switch and PS4, which is really nice. Then we have the Dragon Quest Builders games. Those were really cool. I think a lot of people sleep on those as well. I personally, I really enjoyed Builders. I don't know about you guys. If you're watching this, if you play Builders, let me know. I really, really enjoyed Builders. I didn't beat them because they're really long games, but I probably put a good 15 to 20 hours in both of them on the Switch. And you know, I just really enjoyed that. They also did Heroes a few years prior to that, Heroes 1 and 2. So those were cool. The Warriors, of course, games. I would love to see like a collection, because they did it on Switch, I believe, in Japan, like as a launch title, but never localized. So that'd be cool to see those localized. And then, yeah, we're actually in 2019 now. And I should say, 2018, The Quiet Man. They do have their duds, but that is a Western game. So, obviously, the point of this video is more so their Japanese output, which is obviously where they shine. You know, they just sold off Tomb Raider and Deus Ex and whatever else to Embracer Group. So, you know, obviously, Square Enix is definitely embracing more their Japan developers, or Japanese developers, and that it makes sense. Obviously, they're doing better for them than their Western games, so carrying on, though. Kingdom Hearts 3, like I said, in January of 2019, that was a huge game, hugely successful. Certainly cemented the Kingdom Hearts franchise. A lot of people would have liked it to end there. Certainly cemented it as something that's going to continue forever. Then we had even just the small stuff, like back in 2018, remember that Nintendo Direct where they announced every Final Fantasy for Switch, from 7 to 15? Of course, you know, missing 11, missing 13, and 14. Okay, so every Final Fantasy from 7 to 15, missing like half of those. And then we had stuff like 15 Pocket Edition. We had Chocobo's Mystery Dungeon, Everybody, World of Final Fantasy. Just all of these games coming to Switch. And I know, like, yeah, you're watching this, you're like, okay, that's a lot of ports. Yeah, but like, who cares though? Mystery Dungeon, Everybody, I think it was a remake, wasn't it? In that case, even though I don't like Mystery Dungeon games, to be fair. Then we had Oninaki, which, let's just talk about Tokyo RPG Factory for a second. I thought they were just done. Oninaki did not do well. I don't think Lost Sphere did well either. I Am Setsuna was definitely their biggest success. And it's been 3 years since Oninaki. But I went to their Wikipedia page, and it says they're working on a 4th game. I was under the assumption that, you know, just seeing the amount of output Square Enix has had recently, I was under the impression that maybe Tokyo RPG Factory was working as a support studio on, you know, like the HD2D games or something like that. And no, that's not the case, evidently, as far as we know, which is crazy. So yeah, Tokyo RPG Factory, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a new game from them maybe next year, maybe the year after, soon, regardless. Final Fantasy VIII Remastered, that was a 4 remaster, by the way. That was cool. I didn't know Dotemu worked on that. That's cool. Then we had Dragon Quest 11. This was a huge deal for Dragon Quest in the West. Dragon Quest Builders also was pretty, I guess, a bigger deal. I said people slept on it. It was a pretty big deal, I feel like, at least in the West. And Dragon Quest 11, of course, was, and they were... It felt like they were milking this for a little bit there. So it released in Japan in 2017, I want to say, on 3DS and PS4. Then in 2018 on PS4 in the West. Then in 2019 on Switch with the Definitive Edition. Then in 2020 again on PS4 with the Definitive Edition on PS4. So now we're just waiting on that PS5 Definitive Edition so we can hear that theme again at an E3. But yeah, Dragon Quest 11, of course, hugely successful game, huge breakout success for Dragon Quest in the West. Maybe not quite as much as they would have wanted, but still definitely the best-selling Dragon Quest in the West. Then yeah, I'm talking about, what is Imperial Saga? Okay, that's a web browser game from 2019. Imperial Saga Eclipse. I don't even know what that is. But then we have Romancing Saga 3. Once again, I know nothing about the Saga franchise, but it feels like they keep making new games and remastering old games. They just announced a few weeks ago that they're remaking the PS2 game. I think it's Romancing Saga Minstrel Song, I want to say is what it was called. So that's cool. I mean, they're just supporting, like, that's not a franchise people talk about. It can't be something that's hugely profitable for them, but they keep doing it. It's kind of like Nintendo with Metroid. Metroid's not profitable. Well, I guess, you know, it is. Comparatively, though, it's not. You know what I'm saying? It's a small franchise, so it's cool to see them continuing to support it. Same thing with Mana, as we saw with the Collection of Mana and Trials of Mana, and they just did the Legend of Mana remake from the PS1 game. I think it was a PS1 game, right? That came out last year on PS4 and Switch. That's awesome. Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory, whatever. Bravely Default 2, the Bravely series, I would love. I think this will probably happen, especially given their output and their willingness to go back to their old catalog. I would love to see Bravely Default and Bravely Second come to Switch, and PS4 as well, if they want to do that. Probably won't happen, but yeah, I would love to see those games come to Switch. Then yeah, once again, we have Bali and Wonderworld, which is a stinker, but once again, they didn't really develop that though. You know, that's not a Square Enix game. They just published it. Same thing with Babylon's Fall. Yeah, then we have Legend of Mana, Neo World Ends With You. Then we have the Final Fantasy Pixel Remastered, which is a step in the right direction, but still 2 steps back. They'll fix this. These games will come to PS4 and Switch and Xbox, I am sure, eventually. I don't know how they messed this up. I mean, how can you remake 6 NES Final Fantasy games and SNES games and not release them on the Nintendo console? I don't know. And even PS4, I genuinely just don't understand how those games aren't on console right now. They will be, though. I have no doubt in that. And that's going to be a hype announcement when they do come over. Excuse me. Then we have this. I mean, this is when we're getting to the stuff that, like, people don't even, like, no one even talks about this stuff. But, like, it's so niche and cool that they're even doing it. Voice of Cards. So this, I believe, was a Yoko Taro game, and there's 2 of them on Switch and PS4. Voice of Cards, The Isle Dragon Roars, as well as Voice of Cards, The Forsaken Maiden. They came out, like, 6 months apart. They were digital-only games, so smaller scale, but still just cool to see smaller output from a big publisher like Square Enix. You know, I doubt that was a super high-budget game. Both of them. So yeah, that's just super cool to see. Then we get to Triangle Strategy. We're in 2022. Another great HD 2D game. I actually just picked it up today. Or got it in the mail today. I'm excited to play this. I don't know when I'll actually have the time to do it, but I'm excited to get to this. As well as I do have the other games here. Then we're going flying. Okay, moving on. Yeah, Triangle Strategy, though. Awesome. Super well reviewed. From people that I've heard have played it, like, really liked it. Then we have Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origin, as well as Chocobo GP. You know, Chocobo GP is good, just microtransaction hungry. And Final Fantasy Origin, once again, they didn't really make that game. Team Ninja did, and it, you know, it's, from what I've heard, it's not that bad. It's just kind of like, eh. And then we're into the unreleased territory, and this is where, guys, I just cannot even believe the output that is coming from Square Enix, you know, and most of this stuff is releasing over the course of this holiday season and, like, halfway through 2023. There are a couple games announced right now from Square Enix that are, like, probably 2+ years off, but for the most part, and this is rare for them, most of the stuff is coming out soon, at least so they say. So let's talk about this. So in July, right before Xenoblade 3, we have Live Alive, or Live Alive, however you want to say it. This is, of course, another remake of an NES game, but it is an HD 2D game. It, in my opinion, is probably the best looking HD 2D game. I'm really excited for this. They just released that demo, and, like, it just says, you know, developed by Square Enix, but, like, was this the team that made Octopath? Was it the team that made Triangle Strategy or Bravely Default? Like, I have no idea. I have no idea who made this. I'm sure, like, yeah, that information's out there. You can look at the director and producer, but, like, it's so crazy. Like, it just feels like they just released Triangle Strategy and Bravely Default 2 over the past 2 years. So to already have another HD 2D game is crazy to me. It's insane to me. And then later in the holiday, we have Forspoken, which doesn't look very good in my opinion. I will say it is Luminous Productions, the team that made Final Fantasy 15. However, Western inspired for sure. I think the guy that wrote Rogue One is writing the game, and, you know, I think Amy Hennig is also involved, maybe. So yeah, not my cup of tea. It looks okay, but I don't know. But then we just get to the Cream de la Cream. I said that in my short, where I found the Zelda cartridges. People made fun of me for saying Cream de la Cream. But just the most Japanese games you can even think of. Star Ocean: The Divine Force, coming to not Switch, but PS4 and Xbox and PC in October as well. That's cool to see. Star Ocean, another franchise that, like, you don't really think about, but people do seem to love. Then we just had announced in this Nintendo Direct Mini, Harvestella. When I saw this, I was just like, bro, that's the game that made me make this video. I was like, bro, how do they keep doing this? How do they keep announcing games? How do they keep doing it? Because we get to a couple more games here, and it's just like, dude, where are these games coming from? So Harvestella, not the highest budget game, and that's what I like about Square Enix. They're not afraid to release these smaller budget games, these, I guess, AA or even just single A games, like Voice of Cards. They're not afraid to release these. Even Capcom doesn't do this. They do the collections, which is cool, but you don't see Capcom making a what I assume will be not $60, you know, game. Well, Harvestella might be $60, but, like, Live Alive's $50 in that case. But yeah, Harvestella coming out looks pretty fun. Then we have Dragon Quest Treasures on December 9th. I didn't even know this was a console game. I'm going to be completely honest. They announced this last year, and I thought it was a mobile game. But watching the gameplay, it looks really sick. I assume it's being made by the builders team, because it definitely kind of seems similar in vibe. You're hunting for treasures. That's the whole point. You're getting valuable treasure. That seems awesome for a Dragon Quest game. That looks like a lot of fun. And then, okay, this is hilarious to me. So you may remember in a little state of play, I think back in March of 2020, they announced 2 games One of them I'm surprised wasn't in a Nintendo Direct, but you know, beggars can't be choosers. And then the other one, I just like, it's just what's going on? Where are these games coming from? They have never done this. They have never released this many games in 1 year. Both of these games are supposed to come out this year. And to be fair, one of them, the one that should have been in the Nintendo Direct, certainly looks lower budget. But once again, like it doesn't really matter. It's just the fact that they're putting out so much quality stuff, quality looking stuff. So we have the Dio Field Chronicle, another one of the this font games, which is why I'm surprised it wasn't in a Direct. That looks cool. Strategy game. Not much to say on it. I'm assuming it's a digital game, but that's coming to everything: Switch, PS5, Xbox, PC. Once again, coming out this year. Then we have Valkyrie Elysium. I have never played Valkyrie Profile. I don't know nothing about Valkyrie, that series, but coming out this year looks definitely higher budget, and that's awesome to see. You know, another Valkyrie game. It's been, I think, like 10 years since the last one. That is really cool to see for fans of that franchise. And then we get into the big boys. So this is all, well, one of them might be this year, I guess. So Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, and Kingdom Hearts. How are they putting out so much stuff? How are they doing it? So we already talked about Dragon Quest Treasures. I guess we'll just cover Dragon Quest right now. There's actually not as much when it comes to this as there is with Final Fantasy. But Dragon Quest 12 was announced last year. Just a logo and a little bit of CGI, I think. I would assume that game's probably 2 years off still, so maybe 2024, maybe even 2025, to be honest. I wouldn't be too surprised. And then Dragon Quest 3 HD 2D Remake. Now, we don't know platforms for that. Given that it's an HD 2D game, I would not be too surprised if it's Switch exclusive, at least at first, just because every other HD 2D game has been. Although, maybe if it were a Switch exclusive, it would have been announced at something Nintendo-related, not at a Square Enix event. But yeah, that's going to be awesome. Another HD 2D remake. I hope they do more HD 2D stuff. Give me that Final Fantasy VI HD 2D. That would be awesome. And then, of course, we mentioned Treasures. And then I have to imagine there's more coming. Maybe a Builders 3 after they're done with Treasures, you know, that kind of thing. And then we have Kingdom Hearts 4, like I mentioned. That's still probably 2 years out. I don't think it's going to come out in 2023. I do think it's closer than people think. People are saying like 2026. Nah, it's not going to take that long. I think 2024 is realistic for that game. And then we have Final Fantasy. Bro, this is kind of speculation, but like, there's a lot happening here. Oh, I didn't even mention Tactics Ogre Reborn and Final Fantasy Tactics Remake, or remasters. Those have leaked. Those are definitely happening. Tactics Ogre was in PSN, so that game's coming as well, probably this year. And then in that same NVIDIA leak, Final Fantasy IX Remake. Now, the word remake there is really interesting. Like, really interesting. I have not seen anybody talking about this. So, you know, when you think of Final Fantasy VII Remake, you think that that's a full reimagining. That's a whole ass new game. When the NVIDIA leak says Final Fantasy IX Remake, what does that mean? Well, a lot of people were thinking, oh, it might be a little bit more conservative, and I do think it will be not quite to the extent of 7 Remake, where they actually changed the plot. But with this next game, Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion, Square Enix has been very clear in not calling it a remake. They are calling it a remaster. Now, I don't know if you guys have seen the gameplay for this game. It does look a little rough around the edges, you know, like the animations and stuff, but by all definitions, in my opinion, this is a remake. It's running on Switch, you know, it's coming to Switch, so, like, you know, whatever. It looks very close to Final Fantasy VII Remake. Obviously, that game looks, like, unrealistically good, and this game definitely doesn't look quite that well, but it's, you know, reusing textures, reusing character models, so it just inherently looks really good. I would not consider that a remaster. That is a remake to me. So, if that's what their definition of a remaster is, that tells me that the Final Fantasy IX Remake that leaked through NVIDIA is probably going to be really big, like a really big deal. So I don't know when they're going to announce that. We'll see. It's definitely real. If you don't know what I'm talking about, look up NVIDIA leak. Everything on that list is coming true. So there's that. And then, yeah, like I said, Crisis Core coming to everything. And here's the interesting thing, right? When we talk about release dates. Crisis Core is said to be coming this winter. Now, when you think of this winter, usually with game publishers, that means this holiday, right? November, December, Crisis Core comes out. That could also be January, February, though, because winter is, you know, kind of split there between the year. For Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, they said next winter. So when you say this winter, does that mean this holiday season, like November, December, like I said, and then next winter for Rebirth, would that mean next February, next March? A lot of people, myself included, assume when they said next winter, that means holiday 2023, early 2024. However, I forget who it was. It wasn't Nomura. Whoever is directing or producing Rebirth said on Twitter, they released a statement saying this game will be releasing approximately 3 years after the original Final Fantasy VII Remake launched in April of 2020, which tells me that Rebirth might be coming sooner than anyone expects in March of 2023. Now, realistically, it's probably 2024 or late 2023. But if that game comes out next March, that's insane. That is absolutely insane. Honestly, even if it comes out next holiday, that's insane. That's way sooner than I personally expected. This is a full remake, reimagining, rebirth of Final Fantasy VII. So even 3 years after the original game release is really impressive, in my opinion. Plus, they did integrate with the DLC for that. Then we have Final Fantasy sandwiched in between what I assume will be the release dates for those two games. Final Fantasy 16, another huge game. I just don't get it, man. This has been a very long video of me rambling about Square Enix's output. I'm just kind of gushing right now. Now, maybe you guys disagree with me. A lot of it is ports, to be fair, and remakes. I've never played these games, so for me, it's awesome. Credit where credit, or, negativity where negativity is due, since I kind of wrap it all up here, talk about the Switch. Yes, Square Enix's Switch output has been incredible. You look at, I saw this post on Reset Era. It was asking, which third party has supported the Switch best? Bruh, it's obviously Square Enix. I think, let's just say ballpark, I don't know how many games Nintendo has published on the Switch, maybe let's say 100, because they publish weird stuff like Fitness Boxing and Go Vacation. I would assume Square Enix has probably published 40 to 50 on the Switch by themselves, which is a lot. That's a lot of games, and they release higher quality games, higher budget games, and retail games and stuff. I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, they're just their output of the Switch has been insane. Now, I do want to say, negativity where negativity is due. I don't know what the hell happened with Kingdom Hearts. I don't know. I cannot fathom it. They're bringing Nier Automata to the Switch. Why did they not put in the effort for Kingdom Hearts? Those games would have done so well on the Switch if they were native ports. I would have bought them again if they were native ports. No one cares about a cloud version. I'm sure it did okay, honestly, to be fair. But I don't get that. That's the most boneheaded decision I've seen from a company in a long time. People make the argument that Kingdom Hearts 3 couldn't run on Switch. Yeah, it could. It could. They got Dragon Quest XI running on Switch. It could run on Switch. They might have to do some legwork. But even not talking about Kingdom Hearts 3, you're telling me the PS2 collections couldn't run on Switch? No, they just didn't want to do it for some reason. Maybe they'll rectify that mistake later in the future, but we'll have to wait and see. So yes, I just wanted to ramble about how damn good Square Enix is doing in terms of just quantity of releases, especially on Nintendo consoles over the past couple of years. This year especially, next year it looks even better maybe. Yeah, there's so many games coming out, man. I can't keep up. I'm still playing Three Hopes. Want to play Live Alive. Then Xenoblade comes out. Need to finish 7 Remake. I know I haven't finished that game. There's so many games, man. I just got Triangle Strategy. I just bought this. Random to show it here. But, oh god, Chocobo. Got this Nirvana AI Somnium Files. So, excited to play that. Yeah, so there's too many games to play, basically. But yeah, I wanted to ramble about Square Enix. Let me know your thoughts on Square Enix's current output on the Switch, and then just in general, down in the comments below. Are you happy with it? Are you not happy with it, based on Babylon's Fall and the cloud versions and all that? Of course, you can follow me on Twitter at BoTalksMedia, Instagram, TikTok, all those places. Join my Discord, link to that is down below. And until next time, guys, peace.